everything about reaching people in your community and growing your church gets a whole lot easier when you realize that marketing is what's capturing people's attention and bringing them to church. I want to take you back to the 1960s. If you were fortunate enough to be alive at that time, you might remember the Jesus Revolution. That was Christians realizing that rock and roll held the youth's attention. And so what Christians did was they said, why should the devil get all the best tunes? And they created Christian rock music and had festivals and concerts and worship stuff, worship series. And they would effectively reach new people because their attention was on rock and roll. So why not bring Christ to where people's attention are and focus it on Christ, not to demean Christ, but to use a new medium to capture people's attention and share the love of God in the gospel with them. We're at the precipice, or if not, we've taken our first steps into the latest revolution, and that is the marketing revolution. Businesses, brands, influencers, gurus, life coaches, and unfortunately, even politicians have figured out how to capture people's attention and use it for their own gain. And they're not using it for the kingdom, so to speak. They're using it for the worldly systems that they are entangled in. And in the same way that Christians took rock and roll and brought attention focused on rock and roll into Jesus, I think churches need to step up and look at how other brands, other businesses, how psychologically marketing is playing a role in capturing people's attention, and then use some, if not all of the ethical methods that others are using to capture attention, and use that to bring attention to Christ and use it to bring people into the faith community. Because I don't want you just to be a digital evangelist, although there's nothing wrong with that. I want you to present people to Christ, absolutely, but also have them continue their faith journey with you in the context of your local church. Okay? So here's the problem. I mean, the youth's attention, and I'm not just talking about youth, I'm talking about moms, dads, even grandparents. Their attention is elsewhere right now. And attention is one of the few non-renewable resources that we have. Can't get more time back, and you can only pay attention to one thing at a time. Okay? You can't pay attention to politics and pay attention to all the good things your local church is doing. You can't even pay attention to the bad things that other churches are doing and pay attention to what the good churches are doing, right? Your attention really, if not completely, is maximally focused on one thing. And like I said before, the youth's, I keep saying church when I mean to say youth. The youth's influence, but also many of our community that attention is on influencers, on gurus, on life coaches, on brands, on politicians. And look, if we can't capture that attention, we're never going to get it back. And like I always say, if they do not know you, they can't go to you. And in the same way, if they're not thinking of you, they can't pay attention to you. If they can't pay attention to you, they can't hear you. And if they can't hear you, they pass another day without hearing the gospel. So what we need to do is we first need to understand that the way the church grew in the past, by being the natural cornerstone of the community, by being the literal marketplace, not business-wise, but like cultural-wise, the town square, that's the word I'm looking for, the town square of the community, it's not that way anymore. Not only that, instead of being the place, the refuge, the place where people said, you know what, I can go there. If I ever need something, if I'm in trouble, if I'm hurt, if I need something, if I need help or support or even prayer, the church was the place to go to. It's no longer that way before. It's no longer the way that it used to be before. And so this is not a situation of let's do something else compared to what we did before. We're now in a situation and a time where we need to do what we did before and then some. This isn't we used to invite people to church and personally, and now we're going to do it digitally. No. You got to invite personally in addition to doing it digitally. I mean, don't you ever think back 100 years, man, pastoring would have been a lot easier, right? Things were cheaper. You didn't need as big of a salary. Your flocks, the flock you had to shepherd was only like 30, 40 people maybe. And it was real easy to be involved in the community and share the love of Christ that way. Now, man, the world is totally different. But that shepherding didn't stop. That preaching didn't stop. That counseling didn't stop. You just had more stuff to add to it. Now your sermons are being recorded, so they got to be really good. Now you got to have multimedia. So now you got to have a team you got to manage. Now you got to have kids ministries, youth ministries, worship ministry. You've got all these different ministries, and the church has really been businessized, businessified, whatever you want to call it. And you have to do more than just be a pastor. You have to be a CEO. It's difficult, and I understand it's not fair, but we can't stop doing what we used to do. We merely have to adapt it, add on to it, and do even more to reach the same number of people. But the good news is, the more that we do, scales even larger. So while we used to work, let's say, I'm just making up numbers here. While we used to work 4 hours and we could reach 40 people, we can now work 8 hours and reach 800 people, 20 times more people, just by working twice as much, okay? And I'm literally just making up numbers. So the point is, you don't need a shortcut. And I think that's where we've gotten a lot of trouble, is we look for shortcuts, when really what we need is a roadmap. There is no driving through the desert around the road to get to the end point of seeing another 10, 20, 30 families in your church. We need a roadmap to take us down the path we used to go down. Plus, there's going to be some toll roads along the way. But when you do that, you will see the church grow. You will see more people paying attention to hear the saving message that you have. This is the whole point of the definitive church marketing method, right? You don't need a shortcut. You need a roadmap. And the definitive church marketing method is the roadmap that you can take step by step to reach people. Be clear, be memorable, be intentional, be engaging, be found, be represented, be known, be seen, and be everywhere. You follow those steps, you will reach more people, get them paying attention, 10x your influence in the community, bring more people to church. For some churches, triple. For some churches, 10x. For some churches, double, right? Just depends on where you're starting from. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go look at my other YouTube videos. I got breakdown on every step of the church marketing method, or you can schedule a call. We'll talk about that later. But the point is, the reason why no one's paying attention is because their attention is elsewhere. And in the same way that we use the Jesus revolution, so to speak, to capture attention through rock and roll, we now need to capture attention through marketing.